Good evening. Welcome to Legacy Battle. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel where you'll be able to view the podcast prior to it coming on our Facebook group page, but also join the Facebook group page because that's how you can win the trivia prizes. If you're interested in sponsoring a podcast, please contact us. I am Michael Adams, creator of Legacy Battle. Here with me tonight from the Gridiron Battle Zone, Brian King. From Steelers Nation South, Rollo Calthin. And Collegiate All-Star, Kevin Adams. And we're joined tonight by a special guest. He was All-West Region first team selection as a senior at Portland, as a member of the Pasadena Sports Hall of Fame. And he's a former NFL running back, played for the Buffalo Bills, the Green Bay Packers, and the Indianapolis Colts. Ladies and gentlemen, Darick Holmes. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Appreciate you guys.
So as always, after the debate, we'll have a little Q&A about his career and see what he has to say to some of our hard questions here. And tonight's debate, he's going to be perfect for because tonight's debate is the greatest NFL running back of all time. And we're going to hop in this tonight, and we're going to start with Brian King.
All right, so I'm going to be talking about the man known as Sweetness tonight, Walter Payton. Walter Payton played 13 seasons for the Bears, 1975 to 1987. He was a 9-time Pro Bowler, an 8-time All-Pro. He was 1977's NFL MVP, and he's a member of both the 1970s and 1980s All-Decades teams and also the 100th anniversary team. So this guy, the first thing that jumps out about this guy was just an amazing training regimen that he had. This guy did hill sprints in Arlington Heights, Illinois, every day during the season. And if you don't know what a hill sprint is, that's like just running as fast as you can up a hill. It's exactly what it sounds like. Not an easy thing to do over and over again, especially during a season. Then during the off season, he set up an obstacle course right along the Mississippi River, and in the hottest part of the day, he's sprinting through that obstacle course. That he wanted to build up his endurance, he wanted to build up his toughness, and that's how he did it. He had some amazing numbers. He set the single game record with 275 yards on the ground versus Minnesota, and that record stood for the next 23 years, and it's still the 5th highest total ever. He's 3rd place in rushing yards per game in a single season, 1977, and he's 6th place for his entire career. He set career rushing records, the career rushing yards record, and that stood for 15 seasons until Emmitt Smith finally broke it. And he still holds the career record for touchdown passes by a running back. That's right. This guy was lethal on the halfback pass. So he had an amazing playing style. He developed a stutter step, which was designed to try and get defensive players off balance and mislead them. And he had a great stiff arm. And this guy, he always fell forward. He hardly ever saw this guy ever losing any yardage or anything. That was his pride and joy. He loved to fall forward. He loved to make sure that he was at least getting somewhat of a game. So, and the last thing that really jumps out about Walter Payton is the fact that he did all this and he really lacked a great supporting cast. So I'm going to bring up this graphic here. So if you look at the supporting cast, this is the amount of Pro Bowl seasons that he had from his linemen, his wide receivers, and his quarterbacks. And as you can see, only 5 for the offensive line. He was never working with a Pro Bowl wide receiver, and only one time he was working with a Pro Bowl quarterback. That was Jim McMahon, 1 season. So if you divide that by the amount of seasons that he played, it comes out to a number 0.46. If you look at the other players that we're talking about today, the other backs, Emmitt Smith, Jim Brown, and Barry Sanders, they all were dealing with a lot better of a supporting cast around them. So when you think about Sweetness, think about a guy that everybody knew what was coming. Everybody knew that he was the only threat that the Bears really had, and they still couldn't stop it.
If you want to know what kind of moves Walter Payton has, check out the Super Bowl Shuffle, 85 Bears. That's as good as it gets. You got to YouTube that if you're watching this at home. Check out the Super Bowl Shuffle. Darick, do you think there was any running back that hit the hole harder than Walter Payton?
Wow. His aggressiveness, I don't think was unmatched. You know what I'm saying? I had a chance to meet Walter my rookie year when we played. I think it was a scrimmage, not a scrimmage, a preseason game up in Chicago. But I don't think it was anyone. I can't describe anyone at this point that ran as hard as him, and then for his size too. So Walter was a great running back, and his toughness, his aggressiveness for a running back for a man his size was unmatched.
I agree. Kevin, what are your thoughts on Mr. Payton?
I mean, he pretty much laid the foundation for running backs. I mean, he kind of brought like a different type of playing style, and like you said, his footwork, he can get people out of his shoes. Great running back. Obviously held NFL records for multiple seasons. Kind of laid the foundation for future running backs.
Rollo, you'll be representing a running back later who had a chance to pass Peyton's record, but kind of decided not to. So what are your thoughts on Peyton?
Peyton was I grew up with Peyton, watching his style. I think a lot of the kids that I played football with and played running back with when I was in Pop Warner and that's how they wanted to run. They wanted to run people over. They wanted to you wanted to put your shoulder down and try to move forward. Like Brian said, he never wanted to lose yards, and that's a lot of kids that I grew up with. That's how they emulated their game was after Walter Payton and sweetness.
Sweet. You know, it's hard to find a negative about anybody we're going to be talking about tonight. Walter Payton, too, his legacy, I mean, the show is called Legacy Battle. His legacy goes even beyond football. He has so many charities that he was part of outside of the game. You know, they have the Walter Payton Award now. That should tell you, you know, how much into charities he was. If I'm going to find a negative just because I'm nitpicking, Brian had mentioned that Walter has more touchdown passes than any non-quarterback out there. He also has more interceptions than any non-quarterback. He's got 6 interceptions. So, I mean, you know, it's definitely nitpicking, totally nitpicking, but there's nothing negative to say about him. So you just got to kind of come up with what we can here to just shed some light on it. He's another back, like I'm going to be representing later, you know, Jim Brown. Peyton is another back that just would run through you. He would not go out of bounds, which you totally see from today's running backs because, you know, they gotta you know, get the big money so they can't get hurt. It's just old school football. You don't see that anymore. Kind of miss it, you know. But so Walter Payton, great running back. Let's move on to our next. It's going to be represented by Rollo.
Well, I got my back is Barry Sanders. To me, the greatest running back in the history of the NFL. 1997 NFL MVP, one of the 6-7 members of the 2000 rushing club. He was Offensive Rookie of the Year in 1989, 6-time first-team All-Pro, 4-time second-team All-Pro. Had one of the greatest college seasons in the history of college football with 42 total touchdowns, 2,600 plus rushing yards. And then he carried it over to the NFL, rushing for 1,400 plus yards in his first season in the NFL. We have never, and I don't think we will ever see a running back with a style like Barry Sanders had. The ability to stop on a dime and then cut and be full speed on the next step. Be able to run like a little bowling ball. You know, he was tough to bring down. I saw a stat a couple weeks ago that he has the most losses by a running back of all time, were over 1,100 yards. And he still only finished 1,500 yards short of the rushing record when he retired after 10 seasons. That is incredible. That he did that in 10 seasons. He averaged 1,500 yards in 10 seasons, and he retired just short of the NFL record. And he was happy walking away. He walked away on his own terms. He never looked back, and he's living his best life. Barry Sanders to me is the best running back of all time.
You hit the nail on the head with the negative yardage comment, because something a lot of fantasy people will recognize is if you're watching Barry Sanders play, it may be the second quarter and he has like -7 yards. And then you check a minute later, he's got 78, you know, and you'd be like, oh, I'm saved. Thank goodness. You know, no one could break one. It seems like Barry Sanders, maybe Adrian Peterson's kind of up there, but Barry definitely could break them. Never had the greatest of lines either, but Darick, was there anybody who like could make his own holes better than Barry Sanders?
No, actually, what we call now the jump cut. Would you see you see him talking about the jump cut? I think Barry Sanders invented the jump cut. It probably was people probably was doing it prior to him, but it didn't become known until Barry Sanders, when people got to really seeing Barry Sanders run. With the jump cut, I think he invented it. A lot of people do it now because he could be one way, jump all the way to another side and take off. So it's change of direction. When we teach now, I'm a running back coach, so we teach change of direction and jump cut. It came because of Barry Sanders, jump cut. And like you guys said, he could be losing yardage, and then next half he ended up with 100-some yards. Like you said, it was minus 20-some yards, ended up with 100-some yards by the third or fourth quarter. So now the way he went about his work, the way he got it done, I don't think nobody else could do it that way.
Kevin, you almost represented Barry Sanders tonight. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on him?
I mean, he was one of my favorite running backs growing up. I mean, heck, my friends and even you called me Barry Sanders when I was a kid, because the way I ran. I probably had more yardage than he did in his career because I was so good. But you know,
Backyard football. Okay.
Yeah, oh yeah. But hey, no pads. That speaks for something. But no, I mean, obviously one of the greatest running backs to ever play. I mean, you know, not to nitpick like you did on the last one, but I know he doesn't really care about records. He wasn't playing football because of records, and he has no regrets retiring when he did. But I just feel like he kind of did the organization a little dirty. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Barry Sanders, but at least finish out the contract or something. I mean, fans felt like they were betrayed. His teammates on the flight home talked about how they tried to convince him to stay. Like they couldn't understand where he was coming from. He just told two of his teammates, like, that was my last game coming home from Baltimore. If he would have stayed, I mean, he would have by all means broken so many more records, and who knows where he would have ended up. Once his contract ran out, I'm sure he still would have been in great shape to go somewhere else. And who knows what he could have done. He could have won, Super Bowls with another team. I just feel he ended his career too early. But by all means, I'm not going to take away from his greatness. Like, he's one of the GOATs. Like, he's definitely one of the best running backs to ever touch the football. But I just feel he left it.
Sorry, Brian, two questions for you. Kevin brought up the one. The first one is did he owe it to the Lions to finish out the contract? And the second question is if he had stayed, would he have pretty much every record for running backs?
Well, I'll answer the second one first. I mean, he was good for, even at that point, 1,200 yards or so a season. So I think he would have had that record pretty easily. As far as owing the Lions, I mean, I kind of almost felt like the Lions owed him. I mean, they didn't put a good enough team around him for years and years. I mean, they slowly just, rode him. And I mean, they had some pieces here and there. And then, Bobby Ross gets hired. He was lukewarm about him, and it was time. I could see where he thought it was time to go because it was a new regime coming in again, learn a new offense. He just didn't have the energy anymore. So like Raleigh said, he went away on his own terms, and, it's hard to fault a guy for that.
Agreed. The Lions haven't been good, not in our lifetime. So it's been a long, long time. So I agree with obviously all of you. He is one of the greatest of all time. Absolutely. Never really had a good quarterback, which didn't help. And he left, I think, was it during Charlie Batch's run when he retired?
Charlie Batch.
Yeah. So, but just a great running back and very elusive. So now we're going to move on to the next one is going to be represented by me, and this was a running back who was, he was elusive, but more like Walter Payton. He would just try and plow you down. I've got Jim Brown. So this is a guy who played for every yard. Okay, he would stiff arm you. He would fall into you just to get an extra 2 yards. So he's from Syracuse. He was an All-American, power runner. Probably invented the word power runner for him. And in 2020, ESPN, he ranked him as the greatest college football player of all time, not just running back, college football player, period, of all time. So he goes to the NFL. Obviously, he's with Cleveland Browns. Everybody knows he's with Browns. He's worked for their organization for years upon years, even after retiring. Now, he only played 9 years as a running back, which, he got out at a good age too. But even in those 9 years, he's still ranked 11th all time, in rushing. He's number 2 in yards per rush, and he's higher ranked in the yards per rush than anyone we're talking about tonight for greatest of all time. He's number 6 in rushing touchdowns still, so that's pretty high up there. And he really played during a time when defenses were made to stop the run. It's not like today where it's pass-happy NFL. Defenses, when he played, were made to stop the run. So that makes it even more incredible what he did. In the greatest running back of all times list, he's ranked number 1 by the Sporting News, Sporty's Tale, Athlon Sports, NFL.com, Sportscasting, Yardbarker, Fox Sports. He's number 1 in all those, and he's the highest ranked running back on NFL's top 100 players of all time. And he's at number 2 as greatest player of all time in the NFL's rankings. In the 9 years of playing, he was a 9-time Pro Bowler, 8-time All-Pro. He's got 3 MVPs, Rookie of the Year, 8-time rushing leader. He's on the 100th anniversary all-time team for the NFL, and of course he's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, all of our guys obviously are in the Hall of Fame tonight. He's the only player to average over 100 yards per game. So that's something. And he still holds 11 NFL records today. And then, like I said earlier, after he retired, he became like a special advisor for the Browns. And since he's retired, the Browns have not won a championship. And that's a really, really long time. And then just outside of football, he was a captain in the U.S. Army Reserves. So he did serve our country, and that really helped him in his movie roles later on. Of course, he's famous for being in The Dirty Dozen. Really good military film. I recommend seeing it, guys, if you haven't seen it. He's been in over 50 movies or TV shows, including Mars Attacks and Any Given Sunday. Now, I know he's had some off-field issues. Somebody may bring that up, but it doesn't take away what he did on the field as being one of the greatest of all time. So Jim Brown definitely deserves to be in this debate and on this list. Brian, I would say he, out of the running backs we're talking about tonight, he most closely matches Walter Payton compared to the other ones we're talking about. What would you say is maybe like the difference between the two of them?
I would go back to the supporting cast. Jim Brown, the Browns offensive line back then really doesn't get very much love at all, and it was really, really good. And so they had of course they had some good wide receivers too, some Pro Bowl level guys. So it's like I feel like that offense was a little more multi-dimensional. I mean, I know that back in the 60s they weren't really too close to balance like what we see now, but it was for its time, it was a little bit more multi-dimensional than a lot of people give it credit for.
He may be the best all-around athlete we're talking about tonight. The guy is he's a beast. He's huge. He was still huge last time I seen him in an interview. But Darick, what are your thoughts on Jim Brown?
Jim Brown, he's a great man. I had the pleasure of working with Jim doing his nonprofit out here in California. He helps out a lot of youth. I was able to actually meet as a youth went to some things that he did out here, and what he's doing out here now for the youth is like awesome. So he's one of the guys that made me wanted to do things as far as with the community when I made it to the NFL. So his off the field stuff, which I really didn't have no knowledge of as far as what if he got him getting in trouble off the field or whatever, but off the field stuff to me was with him helping the community in Los Angeles. He lives out here with the gang violence and all that type of stuff. So off the field was Jim with me was trying to keep guys like me out of jail and from selling drugs or gang banging, things of that sort. Football wise, he was a beast. Like it was for him and Barry Sanders, like I said, to only play 10 and 9 years and to do what they did. Man, we missed out on a lot. You know what I'm saying? Of course, I wasn't. I was born after Jim Brown. You know what I'm saying? Like I really didn't get to see him play. I was young. I didn't really get to see him, like really watching. But Barry Sanders, I got to watch. But Jim Brown playing 9 years and still holding all these records like he holds. Man, just think if he would have played just 3 or 4 more years. You know what I'm saying? Think if he would have played 3 or 4 more years, what these records would be. Like you said, and it was defenses was trying to stop the run, like way more than what they are now. Offenses wasn't how they are. So for him to be able to go out there and perform week in, week out like he did, just lets you guys know what type of athlete he was and what type of man and what what he's about.
Rollo, you're from Steelers Nation South, so talking about Cleveland Browns here,
That's rivalry, ain't it?
that's the enemy for you. So
Wow.
what do you think there, Rollo, about the Browns and Jim Brown?
It's tough to give Eddie Brown any kind of love, but with Jim Brown, I mean, he was so phenomenal at his craft. As and from what I understand, he was a great man too. Like I've never met him. Darick, you got to meet him, but he did his damage in seasons where they only played 12 games, 14 games. He didn't get the benefit of the extra 2 games like a lot of these guys on the list had.
Yeah.
So he put up those numbers when with shortened carries and shortened games. So I mean, over his last 3 years, I think he had 36 touchdowns. So imagine he was still like his last year. He had 17, so he was still at the top of his craft when he walked away. So like you guys said, what if he would have played another 3 years, 4 years? Imagine the records that he would have put up.
Wow. I didn't know that. I forgot about the 12 game situation. They was only playing 12 games then.
There were no bye weeks back then either. You just played them straight. You couldn't rest up.
Wow.
Kevin, what are your thoughts on Jim Brown? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I'll start with the negative first, because I don't want to take away from what he's done for the football. Like you said, he did have some off-field issues. Had a lot of violent type of issues. But you wonder if that's from what possibly maybe CTE. It can cause the violent outbursts. So he did have some legal trouble there. But I'd say one of the worst things he did was play in Mars Attacks. That was one of the worst movies ever. Had some of the biggest stars ever. That kind of ruined his acting career right there. That movie. But anyways, Jim Brown, great running back. I don't know if you had mentioned, but in 2002, Sporting News had actually selected him as the greatest football player of all time. And then NFL Network had ranked him second greatest player in the NFL, just behind Jerry Rice.
Yeah, I mentioned all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, great running back. I mean, he will plow through people. He's a big dude. He's kind of like the bus reminds me of Jim Brown. The bus, Jerome Bettis, would do the same thing. Would plow through people, and you're afraid to get in front of them because they'll just run you right over. And I don't know if you had mentioned too that he actually has the highest career touchdowns per game too. He averaged over 1 touchdown a game.
Okay.
Something also want to add. From what I understand, he was a bit of a cross player than he was a football player. So imagine if he had taken on the cross route instead of football.
Right, he's a Hall of Famer in that too.
Hall of Famer for the cross, yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Are you guys all from back east?
Yes.
Are you guys from the Becky?
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're all
Yeah.
from Pittsburgh, all of us actually.
Yeah, lacrosse is just really starting to happen out here. Like over the last, like I want to say 10 years or so, where I start kind of recognizing it, like becoming big. And so that's good that he played lacrosse. But yeah, out here lacrosse is just now becoming big.
All right, let's move to our last running back. That's represented by Kevin Adams.
So I got a Dallas Cowboy. I never really liked the Cowboys in the 90s, especially when they beat my Steelers in the Super Bowl. But I blame that on Neil O'Donnell. But I got Emmitt Smith, number 22. Born in Florida, went to UF, Florida Gator. Played 15 years in the NFL. He's actually one of the smaller running backs to play the game, only 5'9", and a lot of people believe like he was too small to play in the NFL. Well, he definitely proved them wrong. He was taken 17th overall by the Cowboys, and that's after the Cowboys actually traded up to get him. They actually traded the Steelers for a draft pick to get bumped up so they could snag Emmitt Smith. And initially, they didn't even want a running back. The Cowboys wanted a linebacker. But if they would have went that route, who knows what the Cowboys would have done if they would have won those championships. Emmitt Smith was part of what they called the triplets. It was Aiken, Smith, and Irvin. That is quite the triple threat, if you ask me. Career records, he's 18,355 career rushing yards, NFL record, 164 rushing touchdowns. He averaged 4.2 yards per carry. He tacked on another 515 receptions with over 3,000 receiving yards and another 11 touchdowns receiving. Postseason, he has NFL rushing record, 1,586 yards, 19 rushing touchdowns in the pro season. 3-time Super Bowl winner, 1-time Super Bowl MVP, NFL MVP 1 time, 8-time Pro Bowler. He had 2 seasons over 1,700 yards rushing and 2 seasons with 20-plus touchdowns. Smith is the only running back to ever win a Super Bowl championship, the NFL Most Valuable Player, the NFL Rushing Crown, and the Super Bowl Most Valuable Player award all in the same season. That was in 1993. Smith, Jim Brown, Peterson, Tomlinson are the only players in history with 7 straight 10-touchdown seasons to start their careers. That's a pretty nice list. Jim Brown, we just talked about him. But 7 straight 10-touchdown seasons to start your career. Smith is also one of only 2 non-kicker players in the NFL to score more than 1,000 points. Only other person to do that wasn't a kicker, Jerry Rice. So, if you want to pick anyone in the NFL, the history of the NFL, to be your running back, and you want somebody that can be dependable, every day, come out there, play for many years, be reliable, Emmitt Smith is got to be your guy. If you want a guy that defenders miss, yeah, Barry Sanders. If you want a guy that will hurt defenders and they wish that they had missed them, go Jim Brown. If you want a guy who's remarkably dedicated, will sacrifice everything to come to the clutch, then you got Walter Payton. But if you want a guy that is a good receiver and running back, will save tons of broken passing plays, then you'll probably want Marshall Faulk. But if you want the fastest guy in speedsters, Emmitt Smith, he doesn't lead in any one of those categories, but he is consistent at a very high level for a very long time. Smith has consistently been effective. He had a playing style where he would follow his blockers, he'd slither through, he would get yardage out of plays that shouldn't have had any more yards to give. Smith was noted as being very durable back with excellent vision, tremendous leg strength, and great balance. He's one of the known as one of the best second effort runners. Smith was also a reliable receiver and an excellent pass blocker to help Troy Aikman get rid of the ball. All around, I think Emmitt Smith is a better running back than all the other players. If you're looking at the whole picture all around, Emmitt Smith takes the cake.
Brian, did he have the best offensive line of all time in front of him?
The Great Wall is legendary, and they were opening up some holes. You could drive a truck through. That's for sure. But you got to have somebody that has the vision to do it. And I feel like of the guys we're talking about, maybe the guy with with the best vision might just be Emmitt Smith, because he was able to, like Kevin said, he saw the crease, he went to where he was supposed to go, and he was able to get some extra yards out of it as well when he lowered the shoulder. He was certainly not a guy I'd want to get in front of.
Darick, what are your thoughts on Emmett, and what could you have done with that line in front of you?
Man, I'm glad you brought that up. The Cowboys was a team that was supposed to draft me in the second round, and they ended up drafting Thurman Williams that year. You know what I'm saying? So I would have been backing up Emmitt Smith instead of backing up Thurman Thomas, you know. But Emmitt Smith, just like he said, durability. You know what I'm saying? When I think about him, like he played so many games hurt. He never, I don't even, did he ever miss a game? I don't know if he ever missed a game. You know what I'm
Only
saying?
when he
He's
sat
missed-
out.
I think he only missed 7, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, his durability, you could rely on him being there at each game. Um, all around, he's definitely an all around back. He can play every down. He blocks. His vision is superb. So he would be one of them guys you would check like 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 like, in each category. Speed wise, like you said, no, he wasn't the fastest, but he somehow still outran people when he needed to outrun them, and he picked them yards up. So Emmitt Smith is definitely, I could consider him one of the top dogs for sure. One of the top dogs. I mean, his record speaks for itself, but his durability was just stood out to me because it seemed like this guy was just always there. You know, like he never missed a game.
Rollo, the 4 running backs we're talking about tonight, Emmitt Smith is the only one who hung around, went to a second team. Some people say that was just to break the record. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I just think he wanted to keep playing. You know, he wanted to keep playing. You know, he loved the game. You know, I remember when the I think it was the playoff game against the Giants. I think it was a playoff game when he separated his shoulder, and he stayed in there. I think he missed like 2 or 3 plays, and I remember running like 160 something yards, and every time he came back to the huddle, his shoulder was like hanging, like literally hanging off his body. So he loved to play the game, and I think that's why he stuck around, you know, to go to Arizona, to go to the Cardinals and play there because he just loved the game and he didn't want to give it up.
Kevin mentioned about all of our running backs, how they might be better in one particular category than Emmett. But just to give you an idea of how valuable Emmett was to the Cowboys, look at the one season where he held out and how poorly they were doing, and pretty much said, if we don't bring him back, this season is lost. So that should tell you a lot of how good Emmett is. So
Yeah. And he was in one of the greatest children football movies ever, The Little Giants.
He was.
What was it? The annexation of Puerto Rico or something?
Rico. Yeah, that Madden did that one though. That's his play.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna do our honorable mentions. Just like a minute each, real quick. Kevin, who's your honorable mention?
Yeah, I got he probably could have been argued in this list also. LaDainian Tomlinson. Running back in the NFL for 11 seasons, widely considered one of the greatest backs of all time. Played for the San Diego Chargers for most of his career, who had selected him 10th overall in the 2001 draft. Tomlinson was in 5 Pro Bowls, All-Pro 6 times, won consecutive rushing titles in 06, 07, named NFL MVP in 06. After his retirement, he ranked 5th in career rushing yards, over 1,300, 7th in all-purpose yards, over 1,800, 2nd in career rushing touchdowns, 145, 3rd in total touchdowns, 162. His college, TCU, they retired his number. The Chargers retired his number. NFL record, most rushing touchdowns in a season, 28. Most consecutive games with a touchdown, had 18 games in a row with a touchdown. He had the most touchdowns from scrimmage in a season. He had 31. He averaged 4.3 yards per carry. He also had over 4,000 yards receiving and another 17 touchdowns receiving. Great player. Would love to have had him on the Steelers. But yeah, he's definitely an honorable mention.
My honorable mention is Marcus Allen. He's 14th all time still in yards, 3rd in rushing touchdowns, 6-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro, Heisman Trophy winner. All of his stats would have been even better if he didn't have a big falling out with Al Davis, who was the owner of the Raiders, of course. The things got so bad for him in Oakland. Not only did he become like the backup running back, but there was a time period where he was actually the fourth string running back. Things were just horrible for him with Al Davis. And when he was finally able to leave and get out of there, he goes on and has 5 more very productive years with Kansas City Chiefs. Played really good ball for them, showing that he still had it. And, his stats definitely would have been a lot higher if not for the backup time he served. And he still holds 4 NFL records today. So Marcus Allen's my honorable mention. Rala, who you got?
I got Marshall Faulk, probably the greatest dual threat back in the history of the NFL. Most receiving touchdowns by a running back, or second most receiving touchdowns by a running back, most receptions by a running back. The only player to have 200 receiving and 50 yards in the same game. He was the fastest to 17,000 scrimmage yards. He was the fastest player to gain 1,000 yards from scrimmage in a season, which was 6. He had 1,083 in just 6 games in 2000. He was unparalleled on offense. He was NFL Offensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl champion. I mean, he was the greatest show on turf. Greatest show on turf. He made that offense run because you couldn't account for him, in the passing game, and then you had to worry about him also running the ball too. So Marshall Faulk is my honorable mention.
Brian?
Well, I'm going to go with the juice, O.J. Simpson. And when you first think of him, you think all the bad stuff in the 90s, and people forget before that, he was just one heck of a running back. He led the NFL 4 different times in rushing yards, 3 different times in scrimmage yards. And he still holds the record, the single season record for rushing yards in the game with 143.1 in 1973, in that magical year whenever he was the first guy to ever get 2,000 yards. And the one interesting thing to note about that season was Bills quarterbacks combined for a 42.7 quarterback rating that season. So they just rode O.J. Simpson the whole way, and they were still able to get a 9-5 record. So just another deal where everybody knew it was coming, but they couldn't stop it.
Nice. Darick, is there anybody you see out there playing today that you think maybe at some point will be among the all-time greats?
Man, shit, I like Christian McCaffrey. That young boy he got game. Like both running backs for Cleveland, the Hunt. What's the other kid name?
Chubbs.
Chubbs. Yeah. And I like both of those are dudes right there. So those guys stand out to me. Saquon Barkley, of course, he's not playing this year, and he's hurt. But them 4 running backs right there, they stand out for me. But if I was gonna go honorable mention, I'm gonna be a little biased. I would go with Thurman Thomas. He reminds me actually. Marshall Faulk reminds me of Thurman Thomas. I'm saying like a versatile back that can run and catch. You know what I'm saying? So Thurman Thomas would be my guy.
Okay. All right, before we have our vote, it's time for tonight's trivia question. So trivia question for a prize. Got to answer all parts of the question. Put them in the comment section on the YouTube page. So if you're not a member of the YouTube page, please join. And prior winners, you're still ineligible. Here's a question. Name these 3 actors. I was a halfback in the 50s at Florida State. I was a defensive tackle at Miami University in the 90s. And I was a starting QB for the California Bears in the 70s. So if you can name those 3 actors, we'll get your prize mailed out to you. Hit it up on the Facebook group page, everyone. All right, let's move on to our vote. Kevin, you're in the top left corner. I don't know if that's ever happened on this show before, so you're gonna vote first. Go for it.
It's about time I'm in the spotlight up top. So I'm gonna have to go with Jimmy Brown. To get those records, the way he ran the ball through people, to get those records in shortened seasons compared to these other running backs. I'm gonna have to go with Jim Brown.
Brown. Okay. I'm going to go with Barry Sanders. I just think, Jim Brown left too early, but obviously, we're not allowed to vote for our own. So Barry Sanders left early, and I think he would have pretty much every record that he hung around, maybe even just one more year. because yeah, he wasn't that far removed from his 2,000-yard season. The guy had game. So, Brian.
Well, I mean, it's just really difficult because you're talking about some just all-time greats. I just want to throw in there that it was a privilege through the 90s, every Thanksgiving, to be able to watch Detroit with Barry Sanders and then Dallas with Emmitt Smith.
Yeah.
I mean, that was something else. And the guy I'm going to have to go with Barry Sanders because I feel like he was doing things that almost seemed superhuman. I mean, just like how he would sometimes escape from, what looked like a near catastrophe. And he was just like, he was a home run hitter. I mean, there would be, like you guys said, he'd lose a couple yards, he'd bury, just getting the, kind of almost like strikeouts. And then all of a sudden, boom, there'd be that home run, a 70-yard run. He was a threat to take it to the house anytime he ever had the ball.
Rollo.
I got to go with Barry Sanders. Simply because
you represented Barry Sanders.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to take somebody else.
I got to take somebody else. I would say Walter Payton.
Payton.
Okay. Simply because, like I said, when I was a kid, we emulated his running style. I remember the Kangaroos. I don't know if you guys remember the Kangaroos, the Walter Payton shoes. But just like that one season where he carried the Bears. I mean, he put them on his back. I think it was 1977 when he literally put the team on his back. The defense wasn't good. The offense wasn't good, but they were competitive because of Walter Payton.
Okay. Darick, you're the only professional out of all of us. Who would you take?
Well, I'm going to take the OG, Jim Brown. Prior to tonight, I had totally forgot that he was only playing 12 games a season. So I'm going to go with Jim Brown because if he had the other 4 games plus the playoffs, it wouldn't even be fair.
So we've got 2 for Barry Sanders, 2 for Jim Brown, and 1 for Walter Payton. So we've got a show that ends in a tie tonight, folks. How about that? It's happened before, but not often. But I mean, all 4 of these guys, it's really hard to pick between those 4. But let's move into our Q&A. I don't think I've ever asked the first question in a Q&A, so I'm gonna go first tonight. All right, so Darick, you've been in the huddle with like Jim Kelly, Brett Favre, and Peyton Manning, right? So I mean, 3 Hall of Famer quarterbacks. I mean, can you maybe like give us like what was the difference in their approach, if any?
Peyton was the more serious, Peyton was the more serious one. So he came to work. It was definitely come to work. You know what I'm saying? With Jim and Brett, it was more fun, more laid back. We got the work done. We knew what we was doing. But Peyton was in a huddle, and just throughout the week, Peyton was more serious than what Jim and Brett was. I don't know because he was the younger. By the time Jim and Brett, they was already like 8, 9, 10, 10 years in the league. Peyton, it was my 4th year, and it was his 2nd year. So, it could have been that too. But it was a difference. That was the difference between all 3 of them.
Okay. Rollo, go ahead.
What was it like getting ready for game day? Could you tell us what it was like? Just what it was like being in the locker room, your game day preparation. What was it like getting ready for game day?
Game day, it was cool. Game day for me, when I get to the stadium, first thing I do, put get my gear together. Then I always took a shower before the game. You know what I'm saying? So I take a shower before the game, and we already leaving the hotel already clean. But since high school, I always took a shower before the game. So I take my shower, then get dressed, go warm up, and just get focused. We got some guys that kind of play around, the veterans. But with me being a young guy, when I first was with the Bills, it was more serious. I was almost like Peyton as a rookie. But game day was good. Intense. Depends on who you was playing, how intense it was. If it was a rivalry game like Miami and Buffalo, or if I was in Green Bay, it was Minnesota, Chicago. Those are our rivalry games. But for the most part, you do the same routine. You know, nothing changes.
Brian, go ahead.
There in Buffalo, you were part of that, revolutionary K-gun offense. I mean, I know that by the time you got there, they had worked all the bugs out of it and everything. But what was it like playing in that kind of hurry up mode all the time?
Well, K-Gun, I loved it. I'm coming from Portland State. I don't know if you remember guys know June Jones,
Yeah.
Mouse Davis. Okay,
Yeah.
so they had the run and shoot offense. So me coming from Portland State, that's why I think one of the reasons they drafted me at Buffalo, because they knew I could catch, and I played in the offense, speed offense like that. So it was great being able to run the ball and with the offense as far as being no huddle. We kept the defense. They couldn't change players or make subs, or kept them off balance by what we did. The K gun was, like I said, what we see now with the 3 wides and the 4 wides. Like I said, we were ahead of the time at the time.
Kevin, go ahead.
So I'm gonna bring up probably a good memory for you. 1995 AFC wildcard game. I'll tell you what, that 22-yard run that you put up, you looked like Emmitt Smith and Barry Sanders in that run, man.
Okay.
That's pretty tight. But that game, you got 2 of the greatest quarterbacks going head-to-head against each other at home in Buffalo there for you, Jim Kelly and Dan Marino. What was that game like to have those 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks head-to-head in a wild card game?
Man, that was like for me to be a rookie and to be involved in that game and to actually play a part in it. You know what I'm saying? It was unbelievable. It was back and forth, back and forth. The reason why we won that game was because our running game. So we had a play called we called bread and butter. It was like really like our zone read right, our zone read left. We said bread, it was zone read right. We said butter was, hold on. Bread was right and butter was left. So all we did was run bread and butter on them all game. And, we had the puller, we had the puller pulling and going the opposite way. So we kind of had keys that was different and made them think we was running something else. But we ran bread and butter all game and hit them for like 300-some yards rushing, I think.
Wow.
Nice.
Rollo, go ahead.
I just want to point out that the Bills did lose to the Steelers in the playoffs. I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, you know my boy Chad Brown was on that team. Chad Brown and Richard Bill.
Yeah.
We went to the same high school, so they had braggers right on me, man. Yeah.
What was that like? What was that like going into Three Rivers with and playing a playoff game? Could you tell me, like, what was the atmosphere like? What was what was it like playing a playoff game at Three Rivers?
Man, it was awesome. It was crazy because growing up, I was a Dallas Cowboys fan, so and watching Pittsburgh, we always it was always Dallas and Pittsburgh for a long time in the Super Bowls. When I used to watch, so me being able to go into Three Rivers and actually play, and then playing against some of my boys, my OG homies, it was a blessing. Just the crowd, just the atmosphere was like, it's like being in Buffalo, but of course it was Pittsburgh, and man, it was lit. It was real lit.
Brian, go ahead.
Well, as you know, I follow you on Facebook, and it's hard to do that and not see how enthusiastic and everything you are about your son Darnay with the Giants now. And he just a couple weeks ago just had an interception against Russell Wilson, which is pretty tremendous. So as you look at his season, I know it's early, but can you tell me what kind of grade you would give him, or how you think he's doing so far?
I think he's great. Well, actually, the first part of the season, he was just getting his feet wet and not understanding leverage and different ways to line up, and so he's playing a new position, even though he played DB his whole career, but outside. Now he's moved into what they call slot corner now, which is nickel, like a nickel linebacker. So he knows it now. Like for the first 4 or 5 weeks, he was just learning without having preseason. So He gave up some inside routes, gave us some easy routes, some easy catches that he shouldn't have gave up. But key thing, he haven't gave up a touchdown yet. So that's a blessing. But he's progressing pretty good. He's loving it, like I said, because now he's knowing what to do. He's watching film. He's learning from the veterans, James Bradbury, Logan Ryan, Jabril Peppers, and all of them guys are his big brothers. They take him home. They all kind of stay in the same area. Actually, Logan and Bradbury stays in the same apartments as Darnay. So every day, you know what I'm saying, he gets a chance to feed off them and learn from them. And Logan holds them accountable. The DBs accountable for their mistakes. So Darnay, he's doing good. He's a rookie, but for the most part, he held his own so far. He missed last game. He's gonna miss the game this week too. His knee is hurt. I had to get a second opinion because he almost tried to play last week, and I was like, I don't need to check out. So now this week they didn't let him practice at all. So it was worse than what he thought. You know what I'm saying? Because he actually hurt it when he tackled the tight end from Seattle. He tackled the tight end. It was a good tackle, but he got up and actually finished the game. But I think it's MCL something that's kind of messed up on him, and it's really a 2 to 3 week injury. But he's not going to play this game. I don't know if he's end up. Actually, I told him if they don't win this game, I don't know what's going to He might end up just chilling for the rest of the next 2 games. I mean, if it's hurt like that, get ready for next year.
Kevin, go ahead.
So I know that you had done some kick returning. From my backyard football games, I did some kick returns too, ran them to the house. But what's it like in an NFL game? Like you catch the ball and you have 11, 12 guys running straight towards you to kill you, like full speed. What's your thought process when you catch it?
It's just chaos, Just make sure keep your head on a swivel. You know what I'm saying? Keep your head on a swivel. So you just got to make sure you know exactly where you're supposed to be. It ain't too much trying to like a running back where you could go one way and go the other. So you got to get to where it's supposed to be blocked, hit the hole hard. You break that crease so you can pop one. But if you tiptoeing, you're gonna get your head knocked off.
Darick, I'm not sure if I think I read this somewhere. I might be not remembering right, but were you once a wide receiver?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. What made the switch to running back? We'll get you out of here on this question. Like, what made you the switch to running back, and who was like your idols like growing up that you looked up to?
Actually, I played running back as a youth. Then when I got to high school, I played receiver. I ended up going back to running back because I had sat out a couple of years, and I ballooned up. So they put me back. When I got to junior college, they put me at running back, and I could catch. So we got a multi-purpose back. So that's why I ended up playing running back. But no, I played receiver all the way into junior. Actually, I played receiver and running back in junior college, but it ended up being with my body, with my size and my weight, and me being able to catch. All the coaches was telling me it's better for me to stay at running back instead of playing receiver.
And who was your idols? Like, who did you look up to?
Tony Dorsett was my idol growing up.
Pitt graduate right here.
Yeah. Tony Dorsett. Okay. Ruben Brown, that's my best buddy.
Okay.
Pittsburgh. Yeah. We graduated in 95. Not graduated, but drafted in 95 to Buffalo.
Okay. Yeah, I was there more when was it Antonio Bryant was there. So much later. But yeah. Oh yeah, Ruben Brown, he could play. And Dorsett, gosh, he could have been on our list tonight. Nobody honorable mentioned Tony Dorsett.
Yeah, I almost did, but I had to think about Thurman. I thought about Thurman. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate you, giving us your time and being here and answering questions and talking about running backs. You're the first NFL running back I've ever talked to in real life. So that's just really an honor for me.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah. So thank you for doing that. I want to remind everybody to subscribe to the YouTube page. You get the shows prior to their Facebook posting. So if you want to watch them earlier, subscribe to that YouTube channel, and then join the Facebook page too, as you can win those trivia prizes. We got a lot of shows coming up here in the future, different sports, more NFL shows coming as well in the future. So keep watching. Everyone have a great night.
All right, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, man.
Yeah, Darick, I just want to give you my personal thank you, man. I really appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate it, man.